data ingestion, and then how do we connect, so what are the different stages, how do you do data loading and all this stuff, right? So we were talking about um, the data that we can load into Snowflake. If you look at this presentation, right? So we have the database, Snowflake database, and then we have the internal stages, we have the external data that we are getting, and we have Snowpipe that we are pushing into Snowflake. Okay, so this is a continuous batch. That means if you have data that gets loaded every half an hour or so, every frequency, based on frequency, we can set up something like every half an hour you get some data, we push it into a table, and this can be configured with Kafka as well. So if you have a Kafka, if you guys know about big data system, right, we have Kafka where queuing mechanism kind of thing, where you push data into a queue and then a producer can push and the consumers can consume. This kind of setup can be done using this particular Snowpipe. Okay, and this is a separate chapter altogether, and we will look into it separately. And coming to the Snowflake, right, this is the internal stages, and this is what the external files that we can pull in the data from. So for the external files, right, if you have files on your external stages like AWS S3 buckets, or Azure blobs, or Google storage, then probably we can integrate them with Snowflake. That is an that's a different chapter altogether, and we can look into it, that particular thing. Okay, and then this is from the local files. If you have local files, and then how do you load the data into local files, into the stages and all this stuff. Okay, so how many types of stages that we discussed so far? So we have about three kinds of stages, right? We talked about it. So we have table stage, named stage, and user stage. So I'm just trying to display it from my Google Chromebook. My laptop got broken yesterday. I'm trying to fix it. So please bear with me if you see any spelling mistakes here and there, because the conversion in Google Chrome with Google Docs, right? It sometimes have some issues. Okay. So whenever people talk about internal stages, right, we have three internal stages. One is internal named stage. You name it, create stage name, and then there are two of them, permanent and temporary. The temporary holds good for only the session. Until the session holds good, your stage holds good. And permanent, you can permanently create a table stage, and then you can grant permissions on the table stage to other users as well. Basically we grant it to a role, and that role can be assigned to any other user who needs the access. That is what the named stage is. And then coming to the table stage, right, so table stage is the moment you create a table, by default the table stage gets created. So you cannot create a table stage, or it's automatic. The moment you create a table, table stage is already there. And whenever you create a user, or if a user logs in, he has the mm, user stage, which is private to him, that cannot be granted to anybody. If you grant privileges on that particular to some user or a role, and then those particular users can access that particular name stages. Okay, so in Snowflake, right, the system, the we call it as a rollback, RBAC, rollback access control is the name of the system. And that particular thing, all the privileges are given to your role. And the traditional databases, right, you grant privileges to a user. Here you grant privileges to a role, and from that role you grant it to a user. The owner of that particular object or anything is the role. The ownership lies with the role, not with the user. User is just to access that. We'll talk in detail, and we'll, when we get into the security part of it, right, we'll talk in detail about that stuff. Okay, and then external is where you try to integrate with external objects. Okay, and then how do we query the user stage? If you look at it, right, so a list is a command for checking the data that lies in the stages. So for a table stage, we first we go with the named stages. Named stages, you create a stage, and that particular stage you want to look at the files that are in that particular stage. Okay. So the command for it is, right, list at the rate of. So before that, right, if you want to see all the stages, all the user created stages, then the command is show stages. So what are the commands that I was doing on SnowSQL, that can be done from worksheet as well, because this is an Android thing. I don't have the access to the SnowSQL here, so I'm just using the worksheet to show you. And this is the stage that we have created. And if you want to look at the contents of the stage, the command is list at the rate of my stage, name of the stage. Okay, it shows us. Okay, so it says the error that has thrown me the current session, the worksheet, each and every worksheet is a different session altogether. This doesn't have a current database. You can use database or use a qualified name. Qualified name is something like so where did we create our stages? We created the stages in SFDB. This database SF schema is the schema that we have created the database. You can use SFDB dot SF schema dot my stage. See, that can be done. Or you can use the other thing is, right, if you want to use the database, use SFDB. And if you do this, right, so what is the current database that we have selected in this session? Have did we select any database here,
No
guys?
database.
No database, right? You can say use SFDB, and then automatically the context, this is called context sensitive menu, this automatically gets changed up. See, now the database is SFDB. And by default, every database will have a schema called public. So public is, if you create an object in public, everybody in the entire account, the Snowflake account, for example, if you created a public database set, all the people can access that particular object. If you create a table in the public schema, every user can access that particular schema. So the moment you choose a particular database or use database, it automatically points you to the public schema first. If you want to change, right, use schema sf underscore schema. So if you look at it, right, see the sf schema got changed here. Or you can go click on it, and then you can choose whatever database, whatever the warehouse you want, and you can select all the databases which you want to work upon, and you can do all this stuff. Okay. So now, if this is the case, now I don't need to use the fully qualified name. I can use a list, because we are in this particular schema, list at the rate of my schema. Okay, does not exist. Sorry, it says my stage, right? Stage. So this is the stage that we have. And then if you want to so this is the file that we have. Okay. And if you want to have subdirectories like my stage slash my other folders like this, right, we can use a put command, but this put command and get command doesn't work from the worksheet. Let me show you that. Put file, we have done this in SnowSQL slash c, so I don't have, for example, I'm giving c colon backslash Snowflake Training slash um, and then what is that, so, and if you want to create a separate this is the file, right, for example emp.csv, and if you want to put it into the my stage folder, right, my stage, you can say my stage, this is the command that you, my stage slash data load slash, and then today's date, right, what is today's date, December 7th or 8th, December 8th, right, so 12/08/2020, and then slash emp.csv. If you do this, right, automatically here it shows like this. It goes and creates another folder. So CSV. Okay, so you can see my screen, right? It's kind of very light. It's not dark here. I can highlight, do something, turn on code highlighter. So I am not getting, it should come in yellow if you turn on the code highlighter, right? Wherever the code that you have written, it goes and highlights this. Okay, so this is what it is. It highlights the code. So my stage, and then it will create a particular folder like this: data load slash 21 0, sorry, it's 1208, right? Sorry, I made a mistake. 1208, then it tries like, let me, yeah, 12 slash, sorry, 1208, and then 2020, and then it creates, it shows you this is how it shows. If you go and list that particular stage, right, it shows like this: emp.csv.zz kind of thing. Okay, so you can create folders, subfolders like this. In a original system where you work in the offices, right, they have this kind of setup. The stage, they have the load, they have an ETL load, they have the if you are trying to get some JSONs, right, you can have a JSON load. So you properly organize your data, because you might get files every day, right? So you have to organize them properly and put it so that it becomes easy for you. And the file that you are putting in it, how big is the file, depends, and then the size of the file adds to your storage. The total storage credits, we talked about it, right? There are two credits: one is compute credits, the other one is storage credits. So the storage credits, this particular files that you have put it in storage, the stages are also part of the storage credits. To look at this, right, if you go to the account admin role, there comes another tab in the menu ribbon. So menu ribbon is one which you can see on the top, right? Databases, and then warehouses. So databases, shares, data marketplace, warehouses, worksheets, history, account. You see the account tab, and this is a Snow Pro question. When you're writing a Snow Pro examination, right, they might ask you what are the tabs that you can see on the menu ribbon, and then they can give you choices, and you have to go pick, and then if something is wrong, you have to choose that is wrong, which is not shown or something. So you have to remember that. So databases, shares, marketplace, warehouses, worksheets, history, account. And if you click on the account, right, it shows the usage of the entire account. And if you see credits used, this is for the total number of credits that has been used, and average storage is 137 GB. I'm having a 137 GB, and I have a table which has too much in this. So I'm going to click on this, and you'll see total, and it shows all the databases that I have. I have a table in databases which is about 433 GB, and then I have a stage. This is the stage that we are talking about, the internal stages. I have about 3.286 KB, and the files that you are loading into the stage is all compressed, and then it loads. Okay, so 320. So, and the fail safe, we'll talk about say fail safe later, but the total thing that you will be paying is 137 GB. That is, I have created on so and so date, and I have dropped the table as well. And then this is the total GB that I have created so far. 630 GB is the one that I have created. Okay, hold on, guys, 1 second. Okay, so Coming back, right? So credits is total credits. We look into this when we come into the Snowflake billing and storage. There is a separate chapter that deals with all this stuff. How do you calculate the storage? How do you calculate the credits and all this stuff, right? And what are the views, metadata views that help you to look into it? We'll talk in detail when we get come into the credits and usage part of the session. So what I mean to say is, right, when you are trying to load any data, make sure that you go and then parse the data. Okay. So parse the data means you can remove the data. How do you remove the data? You can use a command called remove, and then let me see. Okay, before going there, so now we have seen how to check the files in the stages, right? So let's go and look. What are the other stages that we have? We have seen the named stage. What are the other stages? What what other stages?
Table stage.
What internal stages do we have?
Table
Table
stage and
stage,
user
Table
stage.
stage. User
user
stage.
stage. So if I want to see, so if you want to see, I can say show tables, and then it show. You have to always, and whenever you're trying to run a query in worksheet, right, make sure you have the semicolon at the end of each SQL statement. If not, it comments both of them and throws a error like this. You have to put a semicolon, or you can just select the entire SQL statement and you can run. Okay, or if you put semicolon and you can go on to that particular line and then you can say control enter. Okay, and this is the um, tables that we have. So and each of them will have an individual table stage. So if you want to look at the contents of the table stage, right, how do we do that? List at the rate of table name, percentage table name is emp. So there is no file here, and this is what it is. Okay, you can go and choose any table and then it shows you, for example, this data samples, right? You can click on it and you can copy this. A black pop-up will appear and you can say, and it, so each one of the table will have an associated table stage, and each user, so this is how you can look at the list of the table stages. And then user stage. So what is my user here? What is the name of my user? Can you guys tell me the name of my user here?
It's
SMODEM.
a modem.
Yeah, yes, modem. Okay, turn off code highlight. So list at the rate of yes, and then tilde. We don't use any name for a user stage. You just say tilde. That shows you if you have any files. I have already had work. We have worksheets here, and then I have the emp.csv.gz file that I have already loaded into this particular environment, the stage, and all the worksheets of this particular thing, all this one, right? Those are all here. If I want to go and remove anything, right, I can say remove, and let me see if I can do it from here. You point your mouse and a black pop-up appears. You copy the whole thing and then you can say remove. So it threw me an error. The reason is, right, where is my worksheet located? So where is this worksheet file
Database.
located? No, this is, yeah, this is it's not, even though the object is created, so yeah, the user stage is not part of a database. The table stage is part of a database, and then internal stage is part of a database. The user stage is independent of databases. Okay, and where is my file? That is my user stage. Tilde
It's in
slash,
cloud, sir.
yeah, this is in cloud.
Okay.
Okay, all of them are in cloud. The user stage, table stage,
Number five.
everything is in cloud, right? Your table is in the cloud, and the stages, the user stage is in the cloud, and the named stage is also in the cloud. Okay, so now I have removed it, and if I go and then list my where is my list? Okay, and I think I don't see this particular. 8680. I don't see 8680. It's deleted. We can delete another one as well. No, I don't want to delete. Let me. I have some sample data with me, so I don't want to delete. This is how you can, and you can say you can. Let me see what worksheet I have. All
Because one
right.
question, for
Mm-hmm.
example, through WinSQL, we can use put and copy into right to stage. So in worksheet, how
Snow
we are
SQL,
doing?
Snow SQL.
Yes, NoSQL we can use put and get and copy into. But here in worksheet, how we are copying from files to stage.
Worksheet, you cannot do that because you are already in the cloud. Because
Okay.
SnowSQL resides on premises. You can copy the data, but putting and getting cannot be done from the worksheet. The reason is right. The
Ah,
SnowSQL that you have installed, that you have physically installed on your laptop, which has the access to your client files, but this one it doesn't have the access.
yeah, that
So
is fine. How we will copy by using this work
worksheet you
works.
cannot copy. No, you cannot copy from the worksheet.
Okay.
Okay. So you can just list, you can do all other statements that you can do in SnowSQL except the put and get.
Okay, from the stage, if suppose we load in the stage, from stage we can load the file data into here database, right? By using worksheet.
Yes. You can do all the commands. Whatever you can do in SnowSQL, you can do it on worksheet except put and get.
Okay.
Okay. So now I have the file already. So now we have seen this, right? We have three stages, and and instead of the remove, right? You can use RM as well. I have removed here. Where is the remove command? No, this is not here. So you can use the same instead of remove, you can use RM. There is nothing, it is already deleted, so removed. So this is not, so you can use remove or rm, and whenever you are trying to do it, right, you have to use a particular stage that you have your file to remove and all this stuff. So always whenever you load data into your stages, make sure that you purge that data, you delete the data, so that your storage is done, so you don't have extra storage. Okay, that is pretty much about the stages. So
This is one
are we
option,
clear?
right? The moment we are loading data from stage to a table, that is automatically purge, automatically remove the
Yeah,
stage file, right?
yeah, that is part of the copy command. And whenever we look at the copy command syntax, I'll tell you. Purge is equal to true is the command that we have to use,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that if the file is loaded successfully, then only
Okay.
so coming back to our presentation, right? So, and these are all the things that we were talking about, right? Each table has a snowflake stage. If the files needs to be accessible to multiple users, you can put it into a table stage, because multiple users have access to the table, right? So that can be done. And user stage, all the worksheets are stored in the stage, will be accessed by a single user. Will be useful if same file needs to be copied into multiple tables. That means you have one single file, and if you want to copy into multiple tables, this can be done. Okay. And then internal stages, appropriate privileges can access the internal stages. Explicitly can explicitly grant privileges on this. And temporary stage stays for only 24 hours, or as long as the session is valid. Max is 24 hours. You can have your session more than 24 hours as well, but automatically after 24 hours the stage is gone. Okay. And the connect to AWS, these are the external stage to connect to Azure, blah blah something. Okay. So this is how we have to use a stage list at the rate of tilde, table stage, internal name stage, external stage. And external stage, internal stage will have the same name. You can create an external stage like my external stage, and then both of them with the same notation, list at the rate of external stage or my external stage. Okay. And coming to the other picture, right? So whenever you have limited data, normally we go with web UI. From the web interface, you can load, select a file, load the file, and then you can load it into a table and all this stuff. And you can use NoSQL for bulk data, right? Bulk data means huge data, lot many number of files. File sizes are very bigger, and those kind of things. Then normally you can use any of this. You can use an ETL tool, or you can use Snowpipe, or you can use NoSQL or worksheet to load the data, bulk data into the table. So there are two stages of loading. One is putting into the stage, and the second one is copying from stage to the table. You remember that there are two stages when you're trying to load into a table. First is putting into the cloud, and when the cloud in the stage environment, copying into the table. Okay, and you can load structured data as well as semi-structured data. If semi-structured data is JSON, Avro, Parquet, ORC, and XML. And as part of the curriculum program that we are going to do, right, we're going to talk about JSON and XML, and Avro, Parquet, ORC are similar. JSON is different, XML is different, and these three are similar. Okay, we'll see the examples. We'll load the data with different file formats and see how it behaves. Okay, and this is the let me see. Okay, so how do you load data into your table? First, create a file format. You know from what kind of file that you're trying to load into the stage, right? You have to copy a file format. For example, there are these semi-structured formats and structured formats we have seen, right? Create file format like CSV, create file format like JSON, file format like Avro, Parquet, XML. You can create a file format, and then create stage object. If you have a stage, that's well and good. If not, go ahead and create a stage object, and then you have to stage the data files. How do you stage the data files? Any idea?
Is the data files. So I mean, from the data stage, we are going to load the data into database from stage
No, that is
location.
no. Yeah, so no, staging into the data
Um,
files means putting the files into the stage.
Put command.
Yeah, using the put command, you can stage the data files. Once you have the files in the stage, right, you can do a bulk copy data into tables. So the important point of bulk copy is, right, you use a copy command to run the data. Copy command is very important, very essential, and performance oriented. I told you, right, the virtual warehouse. If you take extra small virtual warehouse, how many servers do we have?
one,
Only one. If you take 4XL, right, how many servers do we
Four.
have?
One.
Four.
4XL
Four.
servers.
Four.
No, extra small. Small is 2. Medium is
four,
4.
8, sir. 8.
No, large is 8. Extra large is 16. Double XL is 32.
64,
3XL is 64.
64.
4 4XL is
1,
128.
120.
This is an interview question. People ask me. So my wife also works as a Snowflake admin, and she was asked this question: how many servers are there in 4XL? So people can come and ask you any kinds of thing. Remember that it doubles up. You can talk through him. So extra small 1, small 2, medium 4, large 8, extra large 16, 2XL is 32, 3XL is 64, 4XL is 128.
Okay.
Okay, so for example, if you take an extra small server and you try to load the data, and we talked about how many virtual CPUs are there in one server.
One.
Virtual CPUs, I told you the configuration of the extra small server. One server, what is the hardware configuration, right? So the hardware configuration of server is, it has 8 virtual CPUs and each 8 virtual machines basically, and each VM has about 200 gig SSD RAM. So total RAM on the server is, How much is the total RAM on the server? Guys, one server has 8 CPUs and each CPU is 200 gig RAM. What is the total
1600.
server?
16.
1600. Yeah. So whenever you do copy command, right? These 8 virtual CPUs will come into the picture. It will form 8 threads and try to load the data. While loading or unloading doesn't matter. So that is where the parallelism comes into the picture. The moment you use a copy command, 8 threads and you have 100 files in your stage, 8 of them goes and internally picks each and every one file and then parallelly load the data into table. That is the most performance way of doing the data loading. Copy command is the best way of doing. If you take insert into table, right, that is a single mode. It goes serially. Then it goes each file so you have to load each one by one. Copy command is, it uses the virtual CPUs of this server hardware and 8 of them become 8 threads and then it reads these files. If you have big file, it goes and parallelly reads 8 of them. I'll show you an example all this stuff, how many are files that will read, how it reads, how it generates files when we do the data loading unloading part, right? I'll show you in action how the files get generated, which for example, if you have taken extra small and you try to do some 50 million records, right, you will see the file naming conventions, number of threads, everything you can see. I'll show you. Okay. So the virtual CPUs will help you to run things in parallel. That is the reason why we seriously advocate to use copy command while loading the data. And in my company, the framework that we have developed, right? We even if we use ETL tools or anything, what we do, right? This is what we have done. We have a file, a 300 million rows in Teradata table. What we do, right? We go and then extract the data into CSVs. We break them into multiple CSV files. We will get about 100, 200, 300, 400, depends upon size. And each, I'll tell you the performance options of what is the best way and what should be your file size so that you can get the optimal loading of the data. Everything I'm going to show you and I'll tell you. So with an algorithm, we extract and generate CSV files, and we put that CSV files into the stage, and we use the copy command, and we load it into the table. And we do it day in, day out for all the tables, incremental data, full load, whatever you say. This is the basic format that we follow. Got it?
Okay.
And then we verify the data. Sorry.
One question, Shekhar. For example, ETL I'm using. So instead
Mhm.
of loading into stage and database, I wanted to load from ETL process to directly into the S3 buckets. Is it possible?
Why not? But where are you? What is your source?
Source is the database.
Which database?
For example, on-premise, there is a Oracle database. I'm extracting by using ETL and doing some
Hmm.
transformation and loading into S3 buckets.
And so the one way of doing that is, right, you generate the files using ETL, and then you
Okay.
have to FTP or you have to use a third party thing to connect to command line interface
S3.
or a
Okay.
third party, and then push the files into S3 buckets.
Okay.
So because AWS also has command line interface, right? You load
But
because the ETL that you are generating will be sitting on your Linux boxes, because the ETL that you have installed might be on a Windows server or a Linux server, right?
yeah,
Once the
yeah, that
data
is
gets
fine.
generated, it,
Yeah,
Mhm.
that is easy way to generate files and populate into staging, and again we are loading into S3 bucket. That is long process. Is there any way to populate directly into database S3 buckets instead of generating
Uh,
files and all?
there. So Metallion does that. Metallion has the process of directly talking to S3 buckets, and it again depends upon which ETL tool that you are employing, right?
Okay, ETL ab initio, for example.
Yeah. So I'm not very good familiar with Ab initio, but Metallion, you can talk to
Okay,
S3 buckets. They have a connector through S3 buckets, and they can push it to S3 buckets.
okay, fine. Thank you. Got it.
Okay. and then you verify the data and you purge the data. So these are the steps when you're trying to do the bulk loading. They call it bulk load. You have to remember this terminology, bulk load, or um, um, using the copy command loading is called bulk loading. Okay, and then so the first part is right. How do we create the file format? So we know your data, you know your data, right? You know your employee.csv file, and then how are this file generated using, you will have comma separated or tab separated or pipe separated or special character separated, and all the numbers you don't double quote them or single quote them, all the numbers that you can double quote, sorry, all the strings that you can double quote. And yesterday I've shown you while doing the data loading how to create a file format, right? While we are doing the from the web UI, I have shown you how to create a file format. Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. So the same way you can do it in the worksheet as well, and then create a file format as well. Okay. So these are the file formats, and this Android I'm not able to. Yeah, you can expand, right? So location of the files from which you can load your file system is local environment, S3, Google Storage, Azure, file formats, CSV, TSV, etc., JSON, Avro, ORC, Parquet, XML, and file encoding. If you want to have a special characters and you want to encode it, right, you can use an ETF8 encoding, okay, that kind of things, okay, and then, okay. So this is how you can use create or replace file format. You can do file form creation of file formats in two ways. You can go here to your this web UI and go to your databases and choose your database, and you have a file format which is a dialog bar. So if you want to create one, create name of the file format, schema name in which you are trying to create, what kind of file format is it, what is the compression mechanism. If you have another compression mechanism, is gzip. By default is gzip, deflate, raw deflate, bg2, broadly, z standard, none. If you don't want to compress at all, you can do like this, okay. So and then what kind of separator is it, comma, and vertical bar, tab, none, other, if you have any special character. And then let's go and see for my CSV format, right? And then this is the same thing. I use my compression auto, column separator is comma, row separator is new line, carriage return, none, other. If you have something else, you can do that. Header lines to skip, you can use one. Fields optionally enclosed by, if you have double quotes, single quotes, you can tell this is how my format will be. Null string, how do you want to handle null strings, okay. And then the escape character, if you have escape characters, how can you do escape unclosed field backslash. If you want to do that, you can do like this, none, other. If you have anything else, date format, if you have a particular date format, you can choose one. If you say auto, it uses the other one. And then timestamp format, and if you have any comments, if you go and then show SQL, will show the SQL. So this is what it is, right? Create file format, my db public, my csv type, my csv type is equal to csv, compression is equal to so and so, so and so, and all this stuff. I'll select this, close, and then cancel. I'll come to my worksheet, and then if you come here, right, so let's open another worksheet. So this is the file format that I have given, okay. So, and the easiest way, if you don't want to create all this stuff, right, there are create file format, file space format, remember that, my temp csv, okay, type equal to csv, skip header is equal to 1. You can just This session does not have a database all the time. SFDB and then schema, SF schema, and then this is what it is, create file format, my file format. See, plain simple, create file format, my type equal to PRQET. I don't exactly remember PRQE, PRQU. What is the format of PRQE? PRQUET, PRQUET. Format create file format, my JSON, type is equal to JSON. So these are all the extra formatting options if you want. There are some of them for JSON, some of them for Parquet, some of them for XML. So you can create, you can go to the web UI and create a file format, or you can come here and then type it, and then you have your file format created for you. You can do it for Avro, you can do it for XML, you can do the same way.
This is a one-time
Got.
creation, right? We can reusable wherever we required. I
Yes,
think.
yes. So normally file formats in a corporate environment where you work in the office, they have a database called util.db. You can see this utility DB, right? So normally people go and create the file formats in util.db and grant access to whomever they wanted, so that they don't need to recreate the file format, and then they can reuse the same file format. But each department or each one of them have their own requirements, right? You will see many file formats. And how do you see file formats in the schema that you have created? Any clue? Or
Oh,
how do you see tables that you have created in that particular schema?
so table. So table.
Show show tables, and then you can, if you want to show tables, will give you all the tables, and if you want to filter, right, like, and then in quotes, uh, EMP. Okay. See, this is mostly not case sensitive, Snowflake. Sometimes it's case sensitive. You have to be. If it doesn't work, go ahead and change and see how it is. Okay. And then the same way you can see file formats. Show file formats. See, these are all the file formats that I have created. Okay. And how do you drop the file format? Drop file space format my temp CSV. Okay. So, and then let's go see what are all the options that we have part of the file format. So this is and you have the formatting options. Type is equal to whatever the type you want, and formatting option. What are the formatting options? Record delimiter, field delimiter, file extension. And how do you see what is the structure of a table? How do you see the structure of a table? See what kind of columns are there in a table, right? How do you see the structure of a table in
Skip header.
Oracle or anyway? Sorry.
Yes.
Describe, sir.
Yeah, describe. So describe file format my CSV format, same thing here, because this is a first class object and you can describe that. And if you describe this, right, there are some default values. When you say create file format, type is equal to CSV, right? It has by default, these are the default values. Type is equal to CSV, record delimiter slash none, you see the default value. And then field delimiter comma, file extension. If you want to have a separate file extension for a tab also, you can have dot tab, dot pipe. If you have a separate file extension for the CSV file also, you can use this here. And skip header by default is 0, it's skipping header 1. and the date format auto frame form. These are the default values. Even if you don't mention in your create statement of file format, right, it doesn't do that. It just goes and gets these values by default. Trim space false, field optionally enclosed by none. Null compression, what is a compression? Gzip. It says auto is gzip. Error on column count mismatch, that means when you are trying to load the data, and then column count means in your csv file there are 10 columns, and then in your what do you call it, in your table there are 11 columns. If you just set it to true, by default is true, then it goes and fails. If you set it to false, it doesn't even map and it goes and loads the data. Validate UTF-8 if it's special characters kind of. Skip blank lines. If you have any blank lines in your CSV file, right, you can skip those blank lines. Replace invalid characters. If you want to replace, you can do that. Empty field as null is true, by default is true. Skip byte order mark. This is for having the MD5 function, hash function, something. If you want to skip the byte order mark, you can do that as well. Encoding is this one. So these are the default values that you do. Even if you say create or replace file format, format name, type equal to so and so, and it pulls up all the default values.
Okay, how can we update this default value, sir? So on 12th column, it is already false. So I wanted to update that 12th one trim space as to true.
Okay.
So how can I update it?
How did I do it here? Skip header is equal to 1, right? The same way, trim underscore space is equal to
Space,
false.
yes, yeah. Equals to true. It was already false.
Okay, equals to true. If you want to do it, these are all formatting options. So if you create this,
Mhm.
it goes. And if you go and describe my
Okay.
term CSV, okay, and this is what you can see. What you have done, trim space, right? Trim space boolean. This is true, and the default value is false.
It's false. Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
So
you
while
can alter the
creating
file
time only, we
format.
need to set this.
Yeah, you can set up or you can alter and then add it later as well. It's up to you guys how you want to do that. For a particular file
Yeah.
format, you
Okay.
have something, you can alter it and then load the file and you can put it back. You can programmatically do it as well. You create a .sql file, and then in the .sql file first statement should be alter file format and add something, and then you copy the data into your table, and if the data is successful, you can alter the file format, put it back. So once you have the file format, and if you want to utilize, you can alter on the fly, depends upon the file format that you are getting. Okay.
You can load
Okay.
any type
Okay.
of files,
Thanks.
right? Flat files or .txt, CSV or XCS.
No, you can load only CSV or any. In the CSV, if you have generated any tab or any other special character concept, you can do that. And the most important question that they ask you in the interviews, right? Can I load an Excel file? Can you load an
No,
Excel file?
no.
No.
Yeah. You have to convert it as CSV, then only you can load. You cannot directly load a Excel file. Period. Okay. And then
Okay.
we have some more stuff. Okay. Oops. Okay. And then, so if you look at this, right? This is for the JSON. These for the Avro. These all part of one file format definition only. And compression is equal to true. File extension, whatever. If you want JSON, enable octal, allow duplicate, strip outer array, strip null values, ignore ETF errors, skip byte order mark. Okay. So if you look at this, right, in this JSON, you definitely need strip outer array is equal to true. Okay, well, when we talk about JSON, this helps you in a very good, better way to load millions of records. This particular thing helps you a lot. Okay, this particular formatting type. And then coming to Avro, the same thing. Compression is the only thing with Avro. We cannot change anything. And Parquet compression, what kind of Parquet? So normally compression with Parquet is snappy. Snappy compression goes very good with Parquet format. So you might change the compression and then use snappy. And binary snappy compression true or false kind of thing. Okay. And if it's XML, ignore UTF, preserve spaces, strip outer elements, disable Snowflake data, and disable auto convert. So there are other XML formatting options that we can see later. Okay.
Okay, so what is snappy here?
Snappy is a compression. So when you are trying to compress, normally you do zip file, right? Which zip you
Zip,
normally
yeah.
yeah, WinZip is the one we normally use in the Windows machine, right? So there are other
Yes.
compression mechanisms as well. They're much more better than the WinZip, like ZZip. GunZip is the one which does open source and does lot better compression than WinZip. So those kind of things. For Parquet, there is another compression called Snappy. Snappy is the name of the compression which goes and compresses the data. And the Parquet file, like getting compressed with Snappy, gives you the best performance and best optimal size as well.
Okay.
Okay. And then we have looked at the file formats, and then I show you how to create. So create a replace file format, my file format, type is equal to CSV, field is equal to pipe, skip header is equal to 1, null if, how do you want to handle nulls, empty field as null is equal to true, compression is equal to 0. I have shown you. Create a replace file, my Parquet format, compress is equal to snappy. Okay. JSON format, JSON. So create a replace. So and one more thing is, right, when you're trying to create a particular stage, named stage, you can associate a file format. Normally when you are trying to load the data into a table using the copy command, you have to give the file format. You have to tell, oh, this is my file format. When you are trying to load a copy into table from your stage slash file name, and then there are copy options as well. We'll look into it. And you can associate a file format with a stage. That means if you have associate create or replace file stage, and with as file format is JSON, and then it can keep all the JSON files, and whenever you're trying to load it into the table, you don't need to mention the file format type. We'll see an example, don't worry. Okay. And so how do you do this? Put file is the first, then, and then if it's in Linux box, you can use Linux. This is a Windows one. Okay. And so this is the steps that you can do. Okay. So yeah, and before getting into the loading part, right, you want to transform some data in the stage itself. So you have a table and the user stage, and you want to look at the contents of the um, files in the stage. So you can do that as well. So if I go and look here, right, so my user stage, how do I see the files in the user stage, or my named stage, how do I see
Percentage.
that? Sorry.
Show a percentage
Show
stage.
files.
Show files will,
Show
okay, I'll
percentage.
do that.
So
Show
percentage.
files.
Where
Show stage,
stage?
my stage.
Show stages will show you all the stages. I want to see the contents of a stage.
Show
List.
stage, then at the date, my stage. List, yeah, sorry.
Okay. And this is my temp EMP stage, right? So I can see the contents of this particular thing as well. Select $1 at the rate of my stage slash emp.csv.gz. I can see employee number, e-name, job. Okay. So you see the heading also here. And if you associate with a file format like this, file underscore format equal to greater than my CSV format. Okay, file format. I have to put quote side normally. Syntax I forgot. Only when you are coding from a stage. Did you see EMP now? Employee number, the heading, the first line that we had. Are we seeing? So it has already parsed your file and then got the data here. So it doesn't know the name of the columns, right? When you're trying to read from a file, it doesn't know the name of the columns. We can just use like this $4, comma
We
$5.
can also skip the header right here.
In my format, I have done that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there are two ways of doing it. One is you don't need to name the file format here. The other one is, right, you can write the file format is equal to type is equal to CSV and skip header. That is called free form. You don't need to have to create a particular file format to look the data. You can just do a free form. That is called file. I don't remember the syntax. I'll tell you that file underscore format is equal to type equal to CSV, and then skip header is equal to 1, and then it automatically on the fly without the file format it parses the data and shows you the data like this.
I understand.
Okay, and I can go and then to date and then dd slash mon slash yyy. Okay, from what the heck is $5 ddmonYY. Nothing wrong in this. Yeah, so there is some wrong data in that because when you say ddmon you cannot have 17, right? So there is some data that is wrong in this particular file. That is the reason it's showing. So you can do transformation also from here. Okay, so this is pretty much about the file format, and we'll go and see all kinds of other file formats, free form loading. So there was one issue where one of my student he joined a company and then he had a tug of war with his manager, and then she did not grant the permissions to this guy, and then she asked him to load the data without giving the permissions of my file, and he doesn't have permissions to create the file format. And he called me and then I told him there is a free form. You don't need to create a file format. You can on the fly you can give file format is equal to type equal to skip header is equal to. I have an example. We'll see that as well. I told him and then he was able to load all the data, and then the manager didn't know that we can do like that as well. And then in the evening she asked him and he told I have loaded all the data. And then how did you load? And did you go somebody take help, and did you use any file formats and all this stuff? He told no, there is a free form way of loading. I don't need. I can write the same way and load it. And whatever the format I looked at the file, I was able to load it. And then slowly the perception about this guy changed. And then he was there for 6 months and he was happily delivering his stuff. And then it's a contract basically. He came out. Okay. So we'll have a hard stop here because I have a 7:30 meeting. I still stretch a little more. As and when we go in deeper, right? I'll keep on increasing the time. So we'll have 1.5 hour is the optimal time that we are gonna run every day. But I want you to sync up with this new stuff, right? So I'm taking things a bit slowly. So we'll have a hard stop right now, and then we'll resume tomorrow. Okay. So I'll show you how to load the files, what kind of files, performances. We'll talk in detail because this is the data ingestion that you'll be working day in, day out. I want you to be comfortable and command confident on this particular data ingestion. So I'll give you lab exercises, I'll give you all kinds of stuff so that you become much more confident. Okay, let's let's call it a day, and then we will connect back. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay, guys. And you said you have some
Okay, sir.
interview questions, right?
Yes, sir. First,
Tell
we'll
me
start
them.
with simple questions, and later on, we'll go with the scenario based. So, what are the
Sure.
advantages of Snowflake, sir? How can that be answered in a? I mean, what are the key points that we have to highlight to address this question?
Advantage of Snowflake is a SaaS. I told you it's a SaaS model, software as a service. It is pay as you go model, and then you don't need to maintain any versions of it, and you don't need to upgrade it, you don't need to patch it, there is no downtime, and there are 3 copies of data that you create, and then the other one is right. So economical when compared to the other on-premise databases. So you can see all this stuff. Snowflake is a SaaS model. It's on the cloud, and then it has very good encryption. And this is what it is. You can 40 to 50% of the admin work is not there. You don't need to tune the Snowflake, and you don't need to create indexes on the Snowflake. So these are all not there. If you go and look at my demo presentation slide, right, there are 7 different points that I have highlighted. You can talk all of them.
Elasticity, performance.
It has multi-cluster warehouse, and you have performance, and it can store all kinds of semi-structured and structured data. The first thing you have to highlight is right. What is it capable? It's on the cloud, very cheap. Number two, it's kind of no tuning, no indexes, nothing at all. And then you have to no maintenance. The maintenance is very minimal maintenance. So these are the areas that you can talk about.
Okay.
And as an exercise, right, whenever you ask me a question, you have to write the question, answer the question, and send it to me.
Okay, sir.
Then you will get to know. Okay?
So you want us to? Okay, we'll mail you, sir. Then.
Please, please.
Okay, sir. And
Okay.
there are some scenario-based questions regarding migration also. They are asking
Mhm.
like, how do you migrate Teradata from Teradata to Snowflake?
When there is another chapter called data pipelines. When we go to data pipelines, I'll explain you how to do that as well.
Okay, sir. Okay,
Okay.
sir. Okay.
Right then. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.